Good morning, beautiful people. We are live.
The sun is rising, the sky is blue. Good morning, grand risings, let's see what's new. It's that time of day for Sonia and crew. Good morning, grand risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton. Cup of coffee in hand, starting fresh with the beans. Wake up, sleepy heads, and shake off those dreams. Good morning, grand risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton.
Is that better? Is that better, people? Trust the silence. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, get your act together. Yeah, we try all manner of things around here. Should be okay now. Yes. Hooray. I do apologize. The problem about being a one-woman show is that you have to do all this yourself. It's not great. It's not ideal. And that is exactly why we keep looking and are working to raise money so we can bring in an actual producer to work with me so we don't have to have these issues. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, you beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people. Thank you for being here with Wake Up. I am so grateful to you. You're all spared my lip reading, said Buzzer Guts. Good morning to you all. Don't lose that lovely smile. It's all good. I won't short order cook. It can be a little bit perturbing when you're just the one person here and you don't know what's gone wrong, but we work through it, don't we? Good morning, Lisa and Jerry and Britt and Peter and Sally Ann and Randy and Armand and Silvana and Fox and Sally Ann and Kath and Crazy Bunny, one of our beautiful, beautiful mods, together with Soul Sound. And good morning, Marcuson. Let's go morning. Let's go, 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 go. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to say, if you have a tune, AI or real or otherwise, for Wake Up, please send it to me. If it's any good, and I'll play it. I will. Now, what's coming up on today's show? At 9:10 a.m., we'll be joined by campaigner Lexi Ellingsworth from Stop Surrogacy Now UK. The clue is in the title, people. Yes, it is. 9:30 a.m., we'll be joined by author Thomas Sheridan to talk about the problem with the weak men who are running our world. That sounds like a topic to get my teeth into. And at 10 a.m., we'll be joined by Ben Hawkes. Ben was with us before. He's from the Wake Up movement, not actually anything to do with Wake Up, but you get me. He'll be talking about his new book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Great Awakening. And what an interesting week this has been. We've had Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Mr. Blackface himself. He's quit. And we've heard that Liam Payne's cause of death has finally been revealed, while 5 people have been charged. And fires have ravaged through California. Devastating stuff. Those poor, poor animals. Poor, poor animals. Who's thinking about the animals? Right? And because we know the type of people who live in Cali, we must also ask, what is the fire wiping away? Jay-Z has filed a new motion to dismiss the lawsuit against him. And I want to talk about the hypocrites around the grooming gang controversy. Those people who have contributed their fair share to a society that dislikes and objectifies working class women, but they are now bleating about how we have let those self-same females down. Shut up. I'm going to call you out later. And while lots of eyes are on the UK's child abuse problem, I'll be looking at the highly dubious children's charity NSPCC, a long history of problematic behaviour and dubious involvements. And I also want to look at someone who is linked to NSPCC through her charity Childline, and that is the broadcaster Esther Ranson, and the very real problems with a gatekeeper like her. All this and the usual good stuff. We do news differently around here because someone had to. Anyone see that Call a General Election debate? Watched a bit of it. Absolutely pointless. Sorry, petitions do not work, even those with 3 million signatures on them. It's awful. Man arrested for arson in LA. Yes, Finbar. Saw that. We'll be going into more detail about the LA fires. It's awful. Absolutely devastating. Really, truly it is. But I am deeply concerned about the animals. These are extremely rich people. The average house price there is $3 million. That's the low end of it. And they've been able to escape to obviously, there are deaths. Very sorry to hear that. But for the most part, these people have been able to escape to their very rich, very posh hotels. But what about the animals? I'm worried about the animals. Yes, I am. Petitions are just begging, says Robert from Health Freedom UK. And I see that David Lammy, the eternally hapless MP, now Foreign Secretary for the UK, has pledged $3 billion a year to Ukraine. He said in a speech that Europe's future security is on a knife edge. Yes, it is, because we have lunatics like you in charge. He calls his foreign policy of billions of taxpayers' money progressive realism. I call it a proxy war. That's what I call it. And hello and welcome to newbies and oldies alike. Thank you for watching on the live stream. Thank you for watching us on Catch Up. We are growing show on show. And thank you all for the tremendous response to the Andrew Gold podcast. Absolutely phenomenal. The main podcast itself has now exceeded over 1 million views. And the clips are also closing in on 1 million views. That's 2 million views. Talking about corruption within the British establishment. Oh, it makes my heart sing. Hello, Sharon. LA, the woke centre of the world. Yes, Finbar, there's animals wandering around on the streets, dogs wandering around on the streets. It's heartbreaking. Yes, Lisa, animals rowers last in the pecking order. It's awful. I learned something really intriguing this week. I mean, it's just a little bit of, but we had a gas engineer around for the annual check, and he had to release some gas into the air just to do a certain check of the pipes, etc. And I said, oh, God, I hate the smell of gas. And he said, that isn't actually the smell of gas. And I'm sure many of you know this out there, but I didn't actually know this. Gas has no smell. It's odorless. They've put a perfume in it so that we can detect it. Did you know this? I didn't know this. You're welcome, JT. I do try and respond to as many emails as humanly possible. Very difficult. Pets are family, says Finbar. Absolutely they are. And congratulations to Roz, comp winner, for winning Terry's book, Divine Intervention. Terry, of course, was with us on Monday. We have another giveaway for you today, so stay tuned. I didn't know that either, Postcolt. Yes. Oh, you did know that, Lisa. No, Marlena. I didn't know that either. I was like, what? All this time? That's not the smell of gas. So there you go. Yes, Crazy Bunny. I'm absolutely thrilled. And just one more thing before I bring in our first guest. Do you remember that video I played on Monday? This one, it's not a video I'm playing now. This is just an image from it. This was from Faith Evans, who was formerly married to the Notorious Big. Faith Evans' song produced by Diddy, a video overseen by Diddy, and of course, highly sexualizing children. This was from 1995. You're never going to guess what's happened. Now, this is the most awful irony. I don't even want to tell you, but I'm going to because we're transparent around here. So basically, YouTube said I couldn't monetize it, but they've monetized it. And guess where the money's going? This breaks my heart. Bad Boy. The money is going to Bad Boy Records. So that means me highlighting Diddy's sexualization of children from 1995 means that he's still getting paid off it. That will teach me. I won't be playing any more of his videos. Yes, it's awful. Yes, Crazy Bunny. The sick irony of it. The sick irony. But there you go. Sometimes you get things wrong when you're trying to do things right. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. Right, let's bring in our first guest. Really important story. Anybody who knows me knows that this is something that I find utterly appalling. I'm going to be talking to Lexi Ellingsworth. She's from Stop Surrogacy Now UK, not to be confused with the US version. And I think the clue is in the title. So let's talk to her. Let's not waste any more time. I'm going to bring her on. Oh, just to say, let me just check. I've got everything I need in order to be able to do this. Oh, no, that's not letting me do it. I might have to. Oh, Lexi, this is not letting me add you to the stage for some reason. This is an odd state of affairs we're having today, people. Why is this not letting me add Lexi to the stage? Should do, shouldn't it? Weird. Let's add this. Lexi, I can see you. I can hear you. I can hear you, but I can't. It's not letting me add you to the stage. This is the oddest thing. We're having some issues. Let me try, and I'm going to delete that. See if that will help me. I'm going to delete that. See if that will help me. And I'm going to try and add. Well, this is not looking great, is it? Delete overlay. Let's try that. There she is. Hooray. Lexi, I was just explaining to everybody that this is the problem when you're a one-woman show and you have to work everything out yourself. But we do get there eventually. Everybody, this is Lexi Ellingsworth. I'm delighted to have Lexi with us. As I say, she's from Stop Surrogacy Now UK. You're a group of women, you say, from diverse backgrounds. You're concerned at the proposals for law reforms of the UK's 1985 Surrogacy Act. Many of our viewers absolutely deplore and detest surrogacy, Lexi, so you're not alone in this, but start where you wish to. What is the point of what you do?
So thanks for having me on, firstly, Sonia, thank you. So we essentially launched in direct response to the Law Commission's public consultation in 2019. And it was the first time I was sort of made aware of what it was that surrogacy was in the UK and indeed what the plans were for reform. So the most important I'm just going to list out the key proposals really that have come from that public consultation. There are plans to reduce the amount of time a woman has to change her mind, and the family courts would be removed from the process, and there would be new powers given to surrogacy agencies, which would essentially be renamed. There would also be open advertising, and the minimum age for surrogate mothers would be set to 21 years old, which is obviously really quite young. It's really quite young.
My daughter's 27. I find the idea of 21, it being set at 21, unconscionable, frankly. But I apologize.
Yeah,
please continue.
To be honest, it gets worse because there's no requirement for a woman to have had children before. So there's obviously she wouldn't have gone through pregnancy and labour. And there's also no requirement for her not to use her own egg. So it would be possible for a woman to be pregnant with her own egg and her own DNA, and that would be obviously giving the child that she's genetically she's conceived with her own egg and she's genetically related to, and her other children are genetically related to. So there's real problems with the Law Commission's proposals, and I'll just say that there was one really what the Law Commission called a key ask, and this is why we think that the plans for law reform on surrogacy is to make the system more commercial in the UK, is for parental rights to be removed at birth.
Goodness
so they
me.
would be introducing something called a pre-birth order, which is basically the process that you see in countries where commercial surrogacy does exist, where such as America and Ukraine. So essentially a birth order, a pre-birth order would be issued and signed, and you are then sanctioning the removal of parental rights at birth.
This is a business. This is an absolute business, and it will be corporate soon as well. Lexi, you've been doing this for 6 years. Why did you get involved in this fight?
So I think it was essentially looking at the Law Commission's proposals and what was coming up, and I was really sort of disturbed really about what it is that we would be doing in this country if those proposals were to go ahead, and to be considering, surrogacy is something quite harmless. I think lots of people consider it to be a harmless alternative to building a family.
Even worse than that, some people consider it like an act of absolute goodness. Oh, you're giving a baby to somebody who can't have one, right? It's portrayed like that, isn't it?
And it's really not harmless at all. I mean, we're seeing research coming out of Canada just last year that looked at over 860,000 live births in Canada, and they assessed the risk of surrogacy to be threefold. So essentially, there's medical risks related to surrogacy pregnancy, including preeclampsia, sepsis, postnatal hemorrhage. So there's some real serious medical considerations, and it's just far from harmless.
It's far from harmless, and £860,000 is far from a short sample. I studied psychology and science. I understand what it takes to make a sample. 860,000 is no laughing matter. We can seriously consider that, and that is a study that we will put in the description along with other links that you have kindly supplied me with. And what it says is gestational surrogacy is 3 times higher risk for severe pregnancy complications. So that's really concerning straight off the bat. But there's lots of other things that people are deeply concerned about, of course. There is the idea that we see regularly, Lexi, and it's difficult to tell whether this is in isolation or whether this is really something that's happening a lot. But we see regularly on social media, 2 men, 2 women, they're there. They've traveled across the world, or men and women, whichever the combination is, but they've traveled across the world to different countries to pick up babies who aren't part of it, to bring back to a culture that is alien to these babies. They haven't been born into this. And nobody seems to think this is a problem, Lexi. I mean, it's astonishing.
Yeah. It's a real issue. And to be honest, the Law Commission's proposals and the draft bill won't prevent that from happening. There will still be the existing system which allows parental orders to be issued for children who are born overseas to be issued here in the UK. So you get parental rights here. That isn't a proposal. That isn't something that's going to stop with these law reforms. And what we're seeing with agencies as well, so the agencies that I talked about that would be getting that new statutory power under this reform, is that they have something called hybrid programs where they will have international operations and connections with overseas agencies, as well as an agency in the UK which has a branch in Mexico. So there are sort of like, as you say, business, there are business trading situations going on in the UK, and we are allowing this to happen.
I believe this is trafficking. Do you think I'm going too far in saying that?
No, I don't. And to be honest, we've heard from the Modern Slavery Line, and they reported 3 cases of forced surrogacy here in the UK. I think it was last year. And that was the first time that had happened. So I think ultimately we've got the situation where women and babies women are having their bodies commodified, their reproductive capability is being monetized, and the babies who result from that are being trafficked, because obviously moving a child away from their place of birth, even if it's sort of within the same country, that's considered trafficking. So if we have a movement of human beings across borders, then we are talking about international baby trafficking, essentially.
It is baby trafficking, and this really deeply concerns me that it's portrayed the way it is, and with apparently so little safeguards. Very concerning indeed. What can we actually do? Many people feel helpless listening to stories like this, and they're just sort of tearing their hair out, and it's just horrible because there's so many issues attached to this. Obviously, as you say, the high risk, the questionable ethics, the trafficking involved, the overriding of natural selection. I mean, that in itself, we're going completely against nature, aren't we, in many respects?
There's some really strong influence from IVF, essentially clinics, and obviously wanting to sort of perpetuate. Lawyers, or obviously family lawyers who deal in surrogacy, would want this to continue, because obviously it's the open advertising that they would be allowed to do to advertise their services. We're seeing adverts for egg donation. Obviously there's been an increase in the amount of money that women can receive as expenses, as it's called, for them to donate their eggs. So there's like an incitement going on, there's an incentivization. and the word surrogacy is thrown in, and then we don't it's not really considered socially as human trafficking, as I say. But what people can do is, at the moment we're working in connection with Surrogacy Concern. They have a letter, a template letter that they can send. You can send to your MP.
We'll
it's on
put
their
that in
website.
The
Yeah,
also link to that in the description. Yeah,
that's perfect. Yeah, so great. People can go on there and send a letter to their MP. What I thought was interesting, and what I'd like to mention, is that when we saw the responses go into the Law Commission's public consultation, it was the majority. They said that in their report that the majority of responses rejected the proposals and rejected surrogacy, but they went ahead and published the draft bill in March 2023 anyway. So I think where people need to get to is their MPs.
So here's the thing. Are you opposed to all surrogacy, including, for example, if a sister says, let me help you out? Are you opposed to that as well?
Yeah, so we have that question a lot. And ultimately, there's dangers. There's health risks to consider. You obviously wouldn't want to put your family member or a loved one through anything that was risky or harmful, or could leave them with even something minor like a birth injury. We're seeing lots of information coming out from the birth trauma group, and when we actually center the baby, so if you sort of put aside the adult intentions, why didn't we do that? So if you put aside like the intentions of the adult, so it might be that that all of the adult parties involved want this to go ahead, but if you think about the baby, it goes against all best known practice to separate a baby from their mother at birth, because ultimately that's the only person they know. Everyone else is strangers. It's the only home they've ever had. A baby will know the mother's heartbeat. Her diet has influenced how the baby has grown. Her voice. There's just no. It's a unique experience. There's nothing else like it, and we are removing babies, newborns at birth away from their mothers.
Well, Ian agrees with you. Blanket ban of all surrogacy, he says, and I have to agree. And when I've covered this before, I've had people come to me saying, I wanted a child later in life, and this is what I've done. You would deny me that, and I have to look at that person and say, yes, I actually would. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because we're put in a position where we appear to be the bad guys. Right?
Yeah, that's quite common for us. I mean, we're not without sympathy, obviously, for people who are going through fertility treatment and who are struggling to have a family. But we have to think about the extremes, and we have to think about where this is taking us. And ultimately, we've had this law in place, since the mid-80s. But that law was brought about by one woman, Kim Cotton, whose story is very public and can be read. And we have to think about what this reform would be doing. So we had that law back in the 1980s, and there has been changes since then. But this is a sweeping law reform proposal that's come through from the Law Commission. And we really do invite people and encourage people to write to their MPs to give their view on that template.
The problem is that obviously, I don't need to tell you this, people are just like so sick and tired of their MPs. They think it's an absolute waste of time. But what alternative is there? And also, I think it is important to leave a paper trail as well. I think that is important, but also to let these MPs know what it means to us. So I think even if it only takes you 5 minutes, it's worth it. I get it where I'm talking to the viewers now. I get it where it seems all pointless. There was that petition this week and they debated it over 3 million views, and it all seems pointless, like they're not listening to us. But I think it's better than nothing, isn't it, Lexi?
I agree, and I think it's also the sort of avenues that are available to us. I mean, our MPs are elected officials, and they are there to represent their constituents. So if you write to them, and engage with them and tell them what your concerns are, the template should actually take less than about 2 minutes to write, because obviously it's set up online on Surrogacy Concern's website. And other than that, you can obviously tweet your MPs, you can retweet us, you can share, you can follow us. We're at Wombs Not For Rent on Twitter, and basically support us, and we'll continue to work to campaign along with other campaign groups against this law reform proposal.
I completely agree with Katie. It does sound like entitlement. People are so used to getting what they want, and that includes humans. And I just find it absolutely abhorrent. We can't forget, of course, that there recently, although I haven't got the name of these two men in front of me, but recently 2 men were convicted of trafficking the 2 boys that they had got through a surrogate. So this is not without problems. And honestly, the thing is, Lexi, we're here, 2024. We're talking about global child abuse, child trafficking, and yet we allow this to go on under our noses as if it's no biggie. So give us a final word, what you have to say that you want people to hear.
I think what we want to do is, obviously, we're here to, as I say, challenge the law reform proposals, but also the media narrative. So thank you so much again for having me on. It's important that these sort of views, we're able to share our views and we're able to talk about both sides, because there is a darker side to surrogacy, as I say, that needs to be considered. I think the final word is for people to really look at surrogacy critically and have some critical thinking around what it is that's actually happening, because I think the media narrative has dominated for quite a long time now, and there's been lots of really good stories, like happy stories of family building. But if you consider the child, I think as long as you consider the child at the center of it, I think it makes it quite difficult to explain it away.
Yes.
And I would always think we should put children first.
Ian says babies should not be traded, and I think that echoes exactly how we feel around here this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Lexi. Everybody, this is Lexi Ellingsworth. She's from Stop Surrogacy Now UK, and I will put all the links that you need regarding what Lexi's had to say today in the description below at the end of this stream. Take good care of yourself, Lexi. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Brilliant work. Absolutely brilliant work. We love that. It's really important what she's doing. So important. I'm having some funny issues here today. Let me see if I can... let me see where I am now. What's that doing to me? No, that's not doing that to me. What's that? There you go. Having fun on StreamYard. It's because we got new overlays. That's what's going on here. Thanks, Lexi, says Randy. It was Harry and Meghan. What? Did they use a surrogate? I think lots of people have used surrogates. And the thing is that surrogates are used by rich people. They're used by gay couples. And they're used by predators. Which is which? Yes, short order cook. Very interesting and important. Good morning, Shalini. Excellent work, says Abster. Funny issues Friday. More power to your elbow, Lexi, says Soul Sound. A lot of celebrities have had surrogate babies, in my opinion, faking their pregnancies. And I saw somebody say something about California. Of course, I am not. Of course, I have sympathy with people losing their homes. Some of them I don't know. I'm going to be blunt. Some of them I don't, because they have watched and they've laughed and they've taunted about the genocides in Palestine. And so I will be looking at that later, because karma is a very real thing. But no, on the whole, of course, I am not rejoicing in the fact that people have lost their homes. Not at all. Yes, Crazy Bunny, how you doing? How you doing this morning? Right, let me see. Right, direct energy weapons, California, cars melting again. 600 watching, 137 likes. Soul Sound is not impressed with this, people. She's not impressed. She's not impressed at all. Just while we're waiting for our next guest to come in. Anybody see that Mark Zuckerberg video? For goodness sake, he says, Mark Zuckerberg, of course, Meta, Facebook, the leader of it all, really, saying it's time to get back to our roots around free expression. And they're replacing fact checkers. Isn't it interesting that Nick Clegg left Facebook this week, about 2 days before it was announced, about 2 days before Mark Zuckerberg made that big speech. As 5 times August, lovely Brad pointed out, I like Brad a lot. He stood up to be counted during C19. As he pointed out, Meta Facebook employs over 65,000 people. That's 65,000 people that were trained, indoctrinated through HR meetings and staff workshops to build a work culture on the belief the company was doing a good thing by interfering with the United States election, who believed they were doing a good thing by censoring life-saving information during COVID. I knew people who worked at Facebook who insisted they weren't censoring anyone, but insisted they were just taking out the bad information. And he goes on. It's very difficult, isn't it? Do you find it easy to forgive a Mark Zuckerberg? Because we've just come through that period and it's still continuing. How many people died as a consequence of the censorship on Facebook? You have to ask these questions because it has so much power. There will be people who are encouraged to and incentivized and coerced to take certain things, including medical procedures, including jabs, as a consequence of the censorship that took place on social media. Mike said Zuckerberg has had a change of mind exactly when Trump gets elected. Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? He's a porn robot like Elon, says Soul Sound. Soul Sound is not impressed. Nick Clegg, yes, I remember when me and Bill Maloney doorstep Nick Clegg. We were at Parliament. It was actually me and two cameramen, and we were there for Budget Day. And the Lib Dems, they all gathered together for a PR in the background at Parliament. And I spotted him, and me and the cameraman went after him, and Nick and Bill Maloney, child abuse campaigner, anti-child abuse campaigner rather, came after us. And I was waiting for Nick Clegg to finish his speech, but Bill couldn't wait and just jumped in and kind of disrupted the whole thing. And actually, it didn't help us, but there you go. But that was when Nick Clegg was caught out. It's a blockage. I don't trust any of our elected representatives here and abroad. All of them are just self-serving, says Armand. Hey, hello there, Scott's Views. Meta Facebook community standards think that posts containing paedophilic content is going too quick. These comments, let's have a look, is fine. I complained about a post, but they came back to me and said it was staying up. Facebook is sick. Come and join us one morning, ASAP. God knows what job Nick Clegg is going to get next. Dread to think. I know he gets paid a rather lot of money for being a fine gatekeeper, doesn't he? That's what these people are about. That's who they are. That's the reality. Charlotte says, where is Ben Fellows? Well, that's a good question. Ben Fellows, of course, famously accused MP Ken Clarke of touching him inappropriately. And there was a court case. And Ben Fellows was found not guilty. What does that tell you? Ken Clarke, of course, was also the man highly responsible for contaminated blood being brought into the UK and given to people. Yes, he was. Health Secretary. Claytor was a traitor to those that voted for him, says Sean. Indeed. I agree with you. There was clearly a problem with him. And there always has been, hasn't there? Because you see, people like Nick Clegg, they're all in it for themselves, aren't they? He knows. Oh, right. Okay, got you. Right. I am waiting for my next guest. I'm very reluctant to pick up another story, but I might have to. And then, unfortunately, might have to wait a little while. So let's just see. And also, is anyone asking if Elon Musk's all-out attack on Muslims lately is linked to the recent investment by Zionist company BlackRock? You know, Elon has recently raised $6 billion in new funding. BlackRock, Fidelity, and Sequoia are involved. What? Sonia was mayor of London. I may come back. Goodness me. I did think about that. That is something I thought about. Michelle, did you know that? Why isn't social services not being blamed? What for? What are we talking about now? And also, I did mention on Monday about the climate and nature bill. Well, and I said, there's nothing happening this week. Why is Piers Corbyn and others gathering outside Parliament? Well, it's actually the second reading is on the 24th of January. And it is an absolute appalling stinker. And it's very heavily censored. And honestly, quite frankly, we need to look at that very seriously. I put a link to the parliamentary channel in Monday's show. So we'll look more on that. Let me just see if my guest is here. This is weird. Why isn't my guest here? Thomas Sheridan. Right. I'm going to have to continue. Liam Payne's cause of death has been confirmed. Obviously fell to his death, we were told, from a hotel in Buenos Aires. It's been confirmed. So what they're saying is his cause of death is polytrauma, a term which means a person has multiple traumatic injuries to their body. Buckinghamshire Coroner's Court had a hearing. They were told it may take time to ascertain exactly how the 31-year-old died. Well, they've come up with it this week. 5 people have been charged over Payne's death in Argentina after he fell from a 3rd-floor balcony. The people who have been charged include Liam's friend, Rogelio Norris, is accused of manslaughter for allegedly failing to fulfill his duties of care, assistance and help towards the One Direction singer. Also, Casa Sur Hotel employee is accused of having sold Liam drugs. A waiter is also accused of having sold Liam drugs. The hotel manager is accused of manslaughter for allegedly failing to stop Liam being taken back to his hotel room. And the chief receptionist, Esteban Grazi, is also suspected of manslaughter for allegedly asking 3 people to drag Payne to his room when he could not stand. So it's a bit of a mess, frankly, isn't it? But honestly, the truth is it's hard to believe what they're telling us, because you only have to look at the height of the balcony. It wouldn't have been easy for Liam to have gone over there. It wouldn't have been easy. So I do think it is really problematic. I don't think we've got the answers. I don't actually think it is linked to the music industry. I think it's so easy. I've said this before. It's so easy for people to suddenly, when something happens to famous people, it's so easy for people to automatically assume that this is linked to other famous people in the industry. And I think that there's a danger in that. It's cheap. I think that we should only go to that when we have some evidence of that. And there is no evidence of that to do with Liam. No, there isn't. It appears that there were 5 people around him at the moment who were supplying him narcotics. And I don't need to tell you about an altered mind state of somebody in that situation. 734 in room. I click, says Elaine. Elaine clicked. And look, delighted to say our next guest is here. So without further ado, let's bring him in. Here he is. I've been having some issues this morning, but not anymore. Hello, it's author Thomas Sheridan. Good morning, Thomas. How are you?
Hello, Sonia. I can't hear you for some reason. Hold on.
Yeah, can't. It's all right.
Internet.
That's completely in line with everything else that's happened today. Don't worry about it. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Thomas? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. We had this on Monday, didn't we? What was it, people? Are you muted, Thomas? Yes, you're muted. You're muted. Good morning, Grand Rising. He's going to come any minute. Love Thomas. I can hear you now.
You can't hear me.
Oh, that's much better. It was a bit of an iffy connection to start with, but that is so much better. Everybody, yes, for those who love Thomas, you know who he is. For those who don't, he's an author, he's an artist, he's a filmmaker, he's a commentator. He's somebody who's not afraid to stand up and be counted. I am delighted to have you back with us, Thomas. Last time we spoke was about 2 years ago.
Wow, 2 years already. Well, I'm delighted to be back. It's a bit early for me. I think I was a batter and an elm in a previous life, so... But I got up early for you, Sonia.
Well, thank you. I greatly appreciate that. We have so many requests for you, so it's absolutely wonderful to have you with us. And you're going to talk about something which I think is so important. It's what's happening around us right now. And to distill it down to its lowest level, but obviously you're going to expand on it. It's really about sort of the level of weak people, primarily men, who are running our world and the problems that they are creating. Do you want to take it away for us?
Well, we live in the West. We have a sort of an ascendancy of weak and mediocre politicians. Most of them are males. Most of them have no life experience or come from families where their fathers are politicians and their grandfathers are politicians. And as a result, we have a kind of an idiotic aristocrat element running the West today. And we're extremely lucky that Putin understands that the Western governments, in Europe in particular, I'm talking about, are basically run by demented simpletons. Otherwise, he probably would have started a war with us a long time ago. He's fully aware that their extreme weakness and lack of integrity, lack of backbone, lack of anything is not representative of the people who live in these parts of the world. Now, here in Ireland, this is a catastrophic problem because it creates a situation where you have mediocre politicians who are definitely not, ready for the job, but not they're children. We're run by children. We're no adults in the room, okay? And these children are only interested in they're like the teacher's pet. Please, Mr. Globalist at Davos, look what I did. I called all the population far right. Can I have a pat on the head and a dog biscuit?
Yeah.
And they've been caught without their knickers down in Ireland now, because what's happened is they put all their eggs in the Kamala Harris basket. They're literally in a state of pure panic here. And I think the same has happened in the UK with Starmer. Starmer's a perfect example of someone who there's no internal wisdom there. And I see this all across. You see it from Macron, you see it in Castro, the rest of them. And and you saw it in spades in Kamala Harris. Now, it's not a left-right thing. It's just that, like, the easiest path for mediocrity to the top is through bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy is generally left or liberal. So that's their main thing to the path. We are now in an age of unveiling. We're now in an age where they can't hide their secrets anymore. And I don't care. I'm not left wing. I'm not right wing. I just want, if we have people running a country, I just want people who say, this is the country. It has this X problems. It needs this much work. We fix it. Not philosophical Davos rent boys, which is what we're dealing with now.
Davos rent boys. Well, there's a headline. Rather like that. Now, the weird thing is that, as you say, they're all so very similar, aren't they? They are so, like, not just physically similar, they are a type. But obviously their mentality is. So this is all about lockstep. Do you think these people are selected, not elected, Thomas?
Oh, absolutely. The current Irish Prime Minister, if you can call him that, the current child, the current giggling little girl, Simon Harris, like another, same giggling little girl that Vilio Varadkar was, that also Trudeau is. These giggling little girls that in men's bodies, there's a video of him at 14 where it says next Taoiseach, next Prime Minister of Ireland. So yes, absolutely, as a joke kind of thing, but he was already selected at 14. Now, you see, I think what happens is they go around these private schools, they look for the biggest sort of like sycophants, the ones who question nothing, the ones who just their only interest. The hand goes up every time the teacher asks a question. And this is a long trajectory going back to the Fabian Society, the New School in New York, the Frankfurt School, through common purpose, through the World Economic Forum's Young Leaders program. They're all extruded through this, like aluminium through an extruder, and they all come out the other end in the die is like a cookie cutter, and they all come out exactly the same. What you have, it's like look, we all know people who've gone through PhD level and simply are unable to think for themselves anymore.
That's right. That's right.
They spent their entire lives up until nearly in their 30s doing what they were told to do, and this is the same with these people. So when they've never had plan B's, they go into panic mode. And you see Starmer in England, and the plan B is, well, you have this problem with these Islamic gangs that are raping kids. Okay, let's be honest about it. That's what most of them are. Okay, you're a far right. Okay, let's leave religion out of it. You're a far right. That's all they can say. And the police here do exactly the same.
Yeah, no, exactly. It is an absolute assault on us when it's really important to be able to show the demographic for what it is. And as people have been rightly pointing out this week, of course, even saying Islamic or Asian is problematic. It is problematic. We need to be more specific, obviously, don't we? They are primarily Pakistani grooming gangs as one example, but you'd never hear a Starmer say something like that. But that's fact. That's not bigotry. That's just fact. But they can't bring themselves. The attacks that Starmer has had, though, Thomas, as an observer, you must be really fairly horrified that Starmer only got in July, and like the chilling impact that this man has had, like banging up essentially innocent people who were watching protests on the sidelines have been banged up, warned that if they were watching, they could be arrested and not bailed. I mean, it's so draconian, it's scary.
Oh, he's psychotic. I believe he's actually mentally ill.
Right,
and very dangerous.
Right.
I have another theory as well, that the British Labour Party, now again, I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm nothing, okay? I just observe these things from the outside looking in. The British Labour Party is doomed. It's finished. It's over. Okay, it's lost the working class. It's look at its biggest constituency one time was Scotland. Scotland has completely abandoned Labour. Even places like unimaginable places like Liverpool have turned on and I go to the UK law, have turned on Labour. So they're looking towards the Islamic community in Britain, and they're seeing themselves reimagined as the Islamic Revolutionary Party. And a huge part of this is all these Labour councillors saying, and they're on record saying, we should accept, and they do say this, these girls should shut up for the sake of diversity. Now, these girls should shut up because we need to transform Labour into the Islamic Revolutionary Party of Great Britain. Now, there's even a more worrying aspect to this as well. There are hardcore jihadist elements within that who know that if they can get power in Britain, they become the first Islamic nuclear superpower on the planet. I know Pakistan has nuclear weapons, but it doesn't have the capability to deliver them like the UK does. And there's a very disturbing undercurrent here of a possible Islamic jihadist takeover of the UK in order to get their hands on the UK's nuclear weapons. And then they literally can point a gun at anyone they want and say, become jihadist. Now, I don't care what anybody thinks. Well, I'm not religious thing to book, but I'm looking at the future. I'm looking at the bigger picture, and what I see is a trajectory that's moving forward, and that trajectory is quite frightening. And everything is a fucking step along the way. We're coming to rape your daughters. That's a step. Everything was a test. The Bataclan was a test. The grooming gangs is a test. It's like someone in a relationship with a wife beater. It starts off with mind control and it progresses to that. And each one is a step to test their boundaries. And we are being tested royally by some very dark globalist jihadist entities.
There's a lot of support for what you're saying this morning, as I suspected there would be, because we're all sick and tired of being sick and tired, Thomas. That's the reality. And but the thing is that you're somebody who is an author about psychopaths, right? One of your books, if I remember correctly, was Puzzling People, right?
I mean,
the labyrinth of the psychopath. No. So, but you're seeing all this coming to life right in front of you. All the things that you said a decade ago and more is all happening right here. It's horrible to be right in these circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the type that blows my own whistle, but the intro to my book, Puzzling People, I even said they're going to create a new normal. And I wrote that in italics. And they started using that phrase in 2020. Now, that's because they're so predictable. Now, think of society as like those Russian nested dolls, where you have a small doll in the middle and you all get a bigger doll. That's what we're like. The psychopath miniature doll in the middle is echoed through all the other strata of society, all the way to the big doll. And you have to remember, it's that real as above, so below thing. What goes on in the street, what goes on in Parliament. And people have to, now they pushed it too far where a lot more people are seeing it now.
Yes.
But a lot of people are afraid. And the biggest problem we have is fear among the general population more than anything else. It's dissolving, but it needs to go like the way it's went in the United States. We've yet to. Now, I'm not saying Trump is the answer to everything, but he provides opportunities. He's definitely been fantastic for this country because he's actually got Elon Musk attacking the politicians here who thought they were like wife beaters. They could abuse us behind closed doors and the rest of the world wouldn't notice. But now they're being found out. And so everything is an opportunity. People remember that. You don't have to love somebody in order to understand this person is useful to us.
I understand that because obviously I'm pretty sure you would realize that I don't love a Trump as one example, but I can see the benefits of him. And I saw that immediately that the election was won because it was like an immediate pushback to all of the woke madness that has infected the world. It was like, okay, that runaway train has just been stopped in its tracks. Now that in itself is a positive. It has to be. But I wonder whether, because we have such weak leadership, obviously purporting to be extremely strong, that then creates these gaps for certain characters to step into. So, for example, an Andrew Tate, as one example, who now thinks he's going to be running for prime minister. Somebody tell him you can't run that's America. But, we have that, don't we? It creates a void. And so you have people like an Andrew Tate saying, I could do that. But, obviously would never want an Andrew Tate doing it. But what are your thoughts about characters like Tate and those kind of
Yeah,
who
we
say
have
that they're the
that,
face of masculinity.
we had that here in Ireland with Conor McGregor saying he was going to run for president and go against
Oh,
woke
yes.
and all that. And then, funny enough, he suddenly gets done on a particularly strange civil charge of rape, which is pretty odd. But we'll leave that out for now. But I don't want people like Andrew. I don't know. I'm not about the guy, to be honest with you. I want a new generation of young people who understand, and particularly the civil service is a cancer. We have to understand that a lot of this comes from like
Yes.
bureaucrats and civil servants, and they're unelected. What we literally need Trumps. We literally need people who have a pedigree in business, successful, but who are not like, scumbags who run the likes of Pfizer and things like that. Self-made men and women. We really do need that. And these people to actually manage countries. We need an age. I know this sounds kind of cold and unromantic, but we need an end of political philosophy left and right. And we need an age of administration where purely a new generation enters into governments and say, look, this is what we have: a problem with the water supply, we have a problem with the justice system, we have a problem with the education, problem with the health. How do we solve it? Without the philosophical mandates of left and right. Well, they're all left now, but I mean, without these philosophical mandates coming from the globalists, we're entering into a post-globalist age. There has to be people. There's no opportunities. There's opportunity, and even like the Irish Minister for Finance, another gobshite called Chambers, recently said we're living in a post-globalist age. My God, that was the most beautiful thing I ever heard when he said that. We're entering a post-globalist age. It was like we've longed for that since 2020, especially when they've made us all like basically they put us into a global Pfizer police state. Now, so things are changing. I mean, there's a great fear among them now. I mean, I even see in the Irish media, they're terrified of Joe Rogan. They're terrified of him because we have mediocrity in journalism. There used to be a time, Sonia, when a lot of journalists were just like you, mainstream journalists. I mean, I met them. I know them, and a lot of them are retired now. But they were like you. They were just like professionals who got the job done. They didn't have an axe to grind per se. They just wanted to get to uncover the story. Well, here in Ireland in particular, I don't know how it is in the UK, but the entire mainstream system is nothing more than a free PR agency for politicians. All they do is worship politicians 24/7, and they receive enormous kickbacks and huge amounts of money in terms. It's not directly handed to them, but it's channeled through things like NGOs and stuff like that. So basically, we don't even have a free press, and but it's not going to last. I think. I'm actually very optimistic about the future.
That sounds so positive, what you're saying there. I like that. So it's not going to last. We're in a post-globalist age. That's really positive because it's easy, isn't it, to feel completely helpless in the face of all of these faceless bureaucrats who are making these horrendous decisions on our behalf. But you're saying things are going to get better.
Oh, absolutely. All you have to do is look at the audiences people like yourself and myself get. I mean, I can put up a video and I will get an attentive audience that's bigger than what's on the national TV stations, programs on YouTube, and very differently from the mainstream audience. The audiences we get are an attentive audience because we're teaching people how to be attentive again, because their short attention span that has destroyed people's brains through mainstream TV, we're undoing it. This is our purpose on people like us on alt media. We're bringing back people's ability to pay attention, to think, to go talk about it, and that's what they never wanted. They wanted, it's the new, like right now it's snowing in Ireland. You would think it was the end of the world, and there's a centimeter of snow. The pure hysteria in the media because they don't actually. But I'm seeing all the Irish news sites now. No, it's just winter. This is not bad at all. Shut down the national broadcast. Shut down the Met Office.
I love that what you just said.
There is. I won't say we don't need an awakening. We just need a critical mass of not, and you'd be surprised how small the percentages would be.
Right.
Of people who are attentive. That's all we need.
Yeah. And we need people to realize that, as you say, what we're going through is similar to a wife beater. We're being absolutely gaslit. We are being abused on a constant basis with our money. The fact that they used a minimum of £120 million in order to be able to sell us C19 advertising to coerce us and scare us. That was our money. That was taxpayer money. So all of this is now becoming very real to us, very transparent. And this is when we can start to do something about it. But talk to me a bit about critical mass, because I know you understand that concept anyway. But you say we don't need as much, I'm paraphrasing you, as people might think. So what do you think we do need now in order to be able to take it right over to the point when everybody gets it?
I'm going to say a spiritual charismatic ascendancy of people. Not even many of them. The right kind of charismatic people with a soul can do remarkable things. Joan of Arc was 16 years old when she led the war against the English in France and liberated the country. She was 16, a peasant girl, but she had something that those people saw. We have to find our Joan of Arcs. We have to find these people that can inspire us. They're out there. I know they exist. And we have to look. We live in such a dark time, and I'll give you an example of it. Put your head in. I mean, I can't do it. You see a 13-year-old girl outside an apartment building in the street. She's obviously been raped and abused. She's covered in cigarette burns. She's been battered by a grooming gang indoors. And the politicians point at her and say, she wanted that. And if you point to who did it, you're far right. No one who is on the side of humanity and has a soul can be involved in that. We have, and that's why I will maintain to my dying day, that woke was an attempt. I don't care what your religious beliefs are. I'm not Christian or anything.
Say it, Thomas. Go for it.
Woke was an attempted demonic takeover of this planet by an evil force. And we only got it. And I have no doubt that Trump avoided that bullet through some supernatural agency. I'm no doubt that Kamala Harris lost the election. And I'm no doubt that that look of terror in the face of Starmer right now is him staring into the abyss of his own soulless nothingness. And he is being harvested by the demonic forces of the left and of that taking over the left and the woke and everything. We should not be afraid to use this language, because if you go to everybody in the past, everybody who did this, they always had a strong spiritual dimension, and didn't matter if you're a Buddhist, a Hindu, a pagan, Islam, even Islamic, anything. The Native Americans, they had a feeling. Yeah, and we need these Boudikas, these Joan of Arcs, these Napoleon types. We need these people who can inspire us, and they are out there, and they don't have to be influencers or anything like that. And when they step, and there's now a gap, an opportunity, a door is opening, and that's what we need. And look, what's the greatest deception you could possibly do? Point to something that's black and say it's white. Point to something white and say it's black. We need.
Right. Oh, where'd Thomas just go? Hello. He just left us. He was literally coming to the end of something and he just left us. What a weird day we're having. Do you think somebody's interfering with our stream, people? It is weird. If he comes back, I'll just bring him in quickly just to finish off what he was saying, because I think that was important. But I take his point. And that is, he's preaching the true gospel. Who says that? Leifma says he's preaching the true gospel. Armand, I'm no saint, mate, but thank you. I appreciate that. Woke tube, said Mr. Mac. Thomas, where have you gone? 77th. Yeah, I was followed by 77th. They had to admit it in a subject access request from number 10 that they had been observing me and monitoring me since at least 2020. So yeah, 77th are very, very real. I'm going to bring Thomas back in quickly to finish off what he was saying, because I think it's really important. I don't know what happened there. Everybody thinks we're getting interference, but who knows? Thomas, finish off what you were saying.
I think that the forces of evil tried to shut this down.
I do.
Again, all we need is a good-hearted people who can think straightforward, talk in straightforward language, and that's all that's needed. That's it. And they exist out there. We don't need celebrities as such. They can help if they've got good brains. I mean, it's all a wonderful interview with Mel Gibson yesterday on Joe Rogan, and I said, my God, like if we could find a few 100,000 people to have conversations like that in any country, we would have the true uprising.
Right. That's what they're scared of. Listen, it's been an absolute joy and pleasure to have you with us this morning, Thomas. Please come back again soon. Where can people find you?
Thomas Sheridan on YouTube. I've got a new show called Not Quite the Witching Hour, which I do regularly, which is like a kind of a vlog thing. And also Thomas Sheridan on Substack. That's the two places to find me. And I'm delighted to come back anytime. I always have a great discussion with you, Sonia.
Always. Absolute pleasure, everybody. This is the fantastic Thomas Sheridan. What an absolute joy and pleasure it has been to have him with us this morning. Take good care of yourself, sweetheart. Have a lovely weekend.
Okay, you too. Take care of yourself. Bye.
Take care.
And
Bye.
best the audience.
Bye. Lovely to have him with us. Yeah, we are having some issues today, aren't we? No joke. We definitely are. And I'm not quite sure what's going on. And it isn't to do with this overlay. It's to do with something else, which is just odd. Sometimes things like that happen. I'll be bringing in our next guest shortly. Let me just quickly look at something very briefly before I do. Let me just see what. No, half this stuff is way too long before I bring in our next guest. So I will have to tackle it afterwards. And I will be. Oh, yeah. No, let me just look at this very briefly. And that is the Lucy Letby retrial. This is being asked by David Davies. David Davies was in Parliament this week. He told Parliament that he believes justice has not been done after hearing various concerns about the former nurse's murder convictions. Now, for those who are not familiar, we cover Lucy quite a lot because I believe this to be an unsafe conviction and a potential miscarriage of justice. I believe she was not given a fair trial. First of all, there's no evidence. It's all circumstantial. It would appear that there was a gang of people at the hospital who were intent on getting her, not least because she had reported several of them for bullying her. And Lucy was convicted in 2023 and 2024 for the murder of 7 babies, the attempted murder of a further 7 babies. And many people say this is utterly, utterly wrong. And one of them is David Davies. And he said he was in Parliament this week for a debate, which was really vital. It's so good when MPs actually do their job, and that is represent the people. And he said justice had not been done. He's been approached by many experts expressing very deep concerns, including a past president of the Royal Statistical Society and a past president of the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health. These are experts who have a problem with the conviction of Lucy Letby. There is, of course, at this moment in time, the Thirlwell inquiry taking place in Liverpool, which I intend to go to at some stage before it ends. And the Thirlwell inquiry is looking at how these murders happened. Right from the beginning, I think the first day, Lady Thirlwell made clear that she had a problem with people questioning this narrative, which is problematic in our world, right? Because it's not a disrespect to the parents. What's disrespectful for the parents is not telling them the truth of what's happened to their babies. That is what is disrespectful to the parents. So I think this is really interesting. I absolutely welcome the involvement of David Davies. And he's obviously a backbench MP these days. He's a Tory, and he pointed to a number of reports produced by 2 consultant neonatologists for Letby's defence on babies anonymised as O and C. They found that a consultant who was, in quotes, one of the principal accusers of Lucy Letby had wrongly inserted a needle into baby O's liver. It was a serious error. And yet somehow Lucy Letby is responsible. There's something wrong here. And in the UK, we really have a problem in admitting when we get it wrong in terms of the judiciary. The CCRC, whose job it is to review potentially unsafe convictions, is an abject failure. There are a number of miscarriages of justice, I believe, that the CCRC have failed. And that includes Jeremy Bamber, that includes Clive Freeman, and that also includes Lucy Letby. We cannot forget what happened with Andrew Malkinson. Andrew Malkinson was banged up for 17 years for a rape he didn't commit. And the CCRC did everything they could not to look at that and review that case. And in the end, they were forced to when an independent an independent organization, grassroots organization, came forward, got the money, raised the money, and CCRC then were faced to pay attention to it. This is atrocious. We need an absolute clearance of all that is wrong and rotten in this country and upholding levels of wickedness. That's what we need. But let's talk about more positive things, because why ever not? I'm going to I'm going to bring in our next guest. And this is really important stuff, right? Because amongst all the doom and gloom of things that are happening, grooming gangs and widespread fires and just awful, horrendous injustices in our world, it's really important for us to be in touch with who we are and our spirituality and what makes us who we are and how we can better use that moving forward. And on that note, I'm going to bring in my next guest. Let's bring him in right now. Here he is. Good morning, Ben Hawkes. You've been with us before. You're from the Wake Up Movement. How are you?
Grand Risings, how are you?
Grand Risings, indeed.
I come with glad tidings, actually, because we've changed the name of the podcast. It's now the Awakened Life podcast. So you've got the wake up back. It's yours, Sonia. Enjoy
thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm the kind of girl, I'm more than happy to share it around if it's going to bring awareness to all of us. Thank you for being here with us, Ben. Last time you were here, you just had a baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Literally. How's that Baba doing?
Oh, he's very good. He's bonny.
Wonderful.
His frequency is high. He's not keeping his mother up too much. And he's eating and pooing in the correct ratios. So all is well.
Well, we love all that. So that's a tick right there. That's fantastic. You, of course, are here. You came on before to talk about ley lines, but you're here today to talk about your new book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Great Awakening, which you have written with someone else. And I'm just looking for the name of him. You're going to tell me, aren't you?
Michael Dowling-Fleet.
Michael Dowling-Fleet. That's it. Good morning to you,
brother.
Michael. What I thought was interesting, when I went to look at your book on Amazon, you are selling the paperback for $11.11. That is not a coincidence, is it?
No, it's we ummed and ahed about it because it's a little bit WANKY, a little bit supercilious, we thought. But why the hell not? Why not do everything we can to give everybody every opportunity to get signs from the universe? So we thought
100%. Why not indeed, right? So I've not been able to read this book, so I'm going to look to you for guidance. And I thought it was fair enough to invite you on because I know you, I know where you're coming from, and I know enough about you to think, yeah, that's going to be something that we're going to want to hear more about. So pick up wherever you want to, really. But why don't you first of all start with what inspired this?
Well, it came from an internal project. So Michael and I have a business called Awaken Life Coaching. Our core proposition is that you are a spiritual being having a physical experience. And that's pretty much, denying that is the start of most people's difficulties. And discovering that is the end of most people's difficulties. Because when you tag into the idea that you're an eternal, immortal being on a spiritual, energetic level, you can start to play the game as it's meant to be played. And at the moment, we are in a position, as you quite rightly said, where a lot of dark stuff is happening. And dark stuff always happens before a change. And that's true in your personal life. That's true on the macro in what we're seeing around the planet. I can't say around the planet. I'm going to say across the planet because we don't want to offend anybody.
What, so, like flat earthers, for example,
indeed.
All inclusive around
absolutely.
Here.
Diversity all the way, which I don't have a position on, by the way, because I've not been to the edge. So I'm just going to leave that one out there.
Fair point. Fair point.
So, indeed. So Michael and I were sat in a cafe in a nondescript Berkshire town. Michael had just buried his father, and we were talking about the coaching practice, and we were both a little not fed up, but we were concerned that lots of terms get bandied about, like fifth dimension, 5D ascension, things of that nature, all in very good faith. I know a couple of bad faith actors in this space, but they're found out very quickly and ejected. Yeah. But what we wanted to do, so we could talk about this in a cogent way, was really define our terms. You know, there's a great proverb that I read at the beginning of 180 Degrees by Fergus O'Connor Greenwood: before we argue, let us define our terms. So we thought we'd sit down and really work out what we thought about certain key things. You know, what do we mean when we say God? What do we mean when we say divine? What do we mean when we say soul, 5D ascension, things of this nature? So we started writing, and we got to a decent body of work, which became the first chapter. And we were talking on the car phone. I was on the way back from an awful meeting somewhere in deepest, darkest West Midlands. And we thought to ourselves, what this thing? And it was quite dark at the time, not in terms of light, but in terms of what's going on at the moment. And we thought, well, actually, what we need is a big red button that people can push that says, don't panic. And then I thought of the mellifluous tones of Stephen Fry, who's got a great voice, but may still not be a goodie. And the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And we thought, wouldn't it be good if someone wrote a accessible, quick read, it will take you a couple of hours to get through, that defines at least one person's view of what it is that's going on. So when people get into the narrative and start watching things like the Sonia Poulton show and start listening to things like the AJ Roberts show, they can start translating what's happening, because it's easy for us. I mean, you've been in this fight longer than I have. It's easy for us to assimilate this knowledge and listen and have a shorthand going. I remember at university, I was told I did international relations. You need to start reading The Economist every week. And after 6 months, you'll start recognizing what people are actually saying. And that's a lot of what's going on, because we've got to remember that 95% of the world don't know anything. And I don't mean that in a hierarchical or patronizing way. It's just the truth, because they are looking to.
Do you think it's as high as 95%? That's disturbing.
Absolutely. Because, and I say this with love, because people, the conspiracy theory box is a control system all of its own. When you get into conspiracy, you automatically get angry, because you're like, oh, Satanists are running the world, pedophiles are in power. None of that is untrue, but that just keeps people at a low frequency anyway.
Fair.
The name of the game with the Matrix is to keep people bouncing about between fear and shame, 20, 30 hertz, and courage.
Yeah.
Because as Thomas Sheridan was saying, who is a monster of an intellect, by the way.
Yeah.
If you've not heard it, look up Masters of Reality on YouTube with Thomas Sheridan. He talks about how Masonic principles are used to own the mind space. It's incredibly, incredibly interesting, down to a city like Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday having two clubs with different colors on different sides of the spectrum is actually there to diffuse energy on a Saturday, so people don't get too uppity. That's a Masonic principle. So that's how deep the Matrix goes. Wow. So our position is, I use quite a small number of awakened, 5%, and the smaller number is those who have punched through 200 and gone, do you know what? The world is dark. There are Satanists running the show. There are lots of people who think that the NHS is too important to attack, ergo Lucy Letby. And I can't wait for Lucy Letby to have a Jerry Conlon moment on the steps of the Royal Courts of Justice when she gets her voice back and she's able to say what happened to her and what's gone on. That's going to be a sight to see.
Right.
But we still have lots of people bouncing around in this pinball machine of conspiracy, of darkness.
Yeah.
And they're just in another prison. And our position is, you get past 200, you punch through, you start to accept who you are. Acceptance is a higher frequency. Who are we? We are a spiritual being having a physical experience. And as I say, when you get there, you can start playing the game, because authority comes back to you. Sovereignty comes back to you. You start not listening to the news. You start not listening. Well, I still listen to it to understand what's going on in that particular egregore.
Right.
For instance, it's interesting to see what's going on in California. Obviously, a lot of people are being put out of house and home and people are dying, but what's actually going on?
Right.
And if you go past that into the conspiracy and then punch out, you can start to see everything from a very, very helicopter point of view. And that's where we're coming from. We just want to be able to give people a window into what's going on, such that they can start analyzing it themselves, come out of anger, come out of fear, come out of conspiracy, and start looking at it as it's meant to be looked at, because we're in charge. We're a spark of the divine. We're a fractal of God. And by God, the more people realize that, and that's what Jesus was after. He didn't want worship. He wanted people to realize that with time, with effort, with application, we can all be powerful. We can all have the Christ consciousness. And as you say, and as Thomas was saying, once we do that, once 0.1% of the population do that, then we're off to the races. We are going to win in a heartbeat and right quick. And that's really why we wrote the book.
Martin's asking, who is this chap? This chap is Ben Hawkes, and he's written a book
Hello.
called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Great Awakening with his business partner Michael Dowling-Fleet. And the thing is, it's interesting. You were saying what really started this off was that Michael had just buried his father or his brother. Did you
Yeah,
say?
he buried his father, and we were pretty
Right.
sure it was a job injury.
There's
So, that's all over.
there's nothing quite like life and death, and when you're dealing with it right there and then, to make you reevaluate everything, right? And there's a profundity, of course, to death. I've sat with people while they've died. It's been some of the most spiritual experiences I've had, actually, and it is incredibly profound. But the thing is that I'm like you. I'm coming from a very similar place as you. Yes, I've been doing this an awful long time. But I have days when I do lapse into that kind of low vibration. And it's hard sometimes not to, isn't it? Because we are surrounded by it. But I take your point about the so-called alternative media as one example, or alternative thinkers, because they are getting into another cage, another kind of form of enslavement of thinking. And that is, everything is a conspiracy. And that in itself is problematic, isn't it?
Well, it is, and it's difficult for people to look. I suppose you have to drag everything you're seeing and hearing through a perspective reality, which everyone has a different version of, and you have to be very forgiving. And I have it massively. I interviewed a neuroscientist called Val Ritova on Monday for the podcast, and I asked her, because I've been waking up scared every morning for the past couple of weeks, scared of nothing in particular, just with a kind of fear program running. And I said, Val, is it possible that I could be picking up something from the egregore, from the collective consciousness? Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
We're all
Right.
networked together via the Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz. That's how remote viewing, telekinesis, things of that nature work. So we all lapse into it, but it's our job to remember that we are human. We are Hugh, light, love, God, made man, manifest. And that's how we operate in this realm. It's very difficult to keep doing that, but death is a great example. My mother is currently being held hostage by the NHS. They kind of want her to die. We've got a conversation with them this afternoon where we're going to have some very choice words. We had a conversation with Dr. David Cartland, who you should get on the show if you haven't. I'm sure you have.
Oh, I know
yesterday
David
about-
well.
Yes.
Yeah, know David well. Yeah.
we
The
had a-
problem is, on a YouTube live stream, it's very, very difficult to talk to anybody to do with C19.
Yes,
Because
I can understand.
they strike you, and that they're like medical misinformation. So that is the problem, of course, that we get that a lot. But so your mum's being held hostage.
Yeah, she's being held hostage. They're saying she's got Parkinson's and she's going to die. We're saying, well, we don't think that's actually the case, but that would be an interesting conversation. But where I was going, my grandmother died over the summer. She was 98. She lived a 20th century life. Fantastic girl. And I remember being the only one in the room who was quite calm about it all. Not that I don't love my nana. She's a wonderful woman. She had her faults like everybody else does. But what I knew beyond any doubt was what Rumi said, was that you wake up as if from a dream, laughing at the idea of your own grief. Death is sad in the third dimensional realm because we miss people, we love people, we want their company, we want their ideas, their vibe, etc., etc. But I was sat with Nana and I just said to her, listen, and I said it very quietly because there were some cousins in the room. I said, listen, you stick around as long as you want to. But when you feel it's right to go, you go, because you're in charge. You've lived a good life, and your time is to go on to the next. Gave her a kiss on the forehead, and got in the car and went home. She died that night, and I'm not saying there's a connection between those.
Oh, come on, there was. I believe there was. She was what I believe there comes a point. I have to compare this to my dog, and I'm not comparing your mum to my dog, of course.
Dogs were sent to us. Dogs were sent to us to teach us unconditional love. Dogs are very important.
Our last dog, our lovely Bliss, a Westie, on the night that she was dying, and it was evident something was seriously wrong, and she lay in my daughter's arms, and I was obviously sobbing. I even feel like sobbing even now, even though it was like 5 years ago. I miss her so much. And I just said to her, when you're ready to go, go. She literally died in front of me after I said that. Like literally, it was like the pain of it. The absolute pain. Marcus, did you lose your wife? I'm sorry to hear that, sweetheart.
I'm
Sorry to
sorry
hear
about
that.
I'm
And
sorry for your
it
trouble.
is obviously painful, isn't it?
It
Absolutely
is.
painful when we lose our loved ones, be that humans or animals. But there is something, I do truly believe there is something after this. Do you explore that?
Yes, of course. Of course. Because it's just, I mean, we believe after this there is some sort of afterlife briefing room where you sit down and you go, "What did I do?" And it's not about right or wrong, it's about application of love. You know, how much love did I use in this particular moment? I was just a bit grumpy with my wife earlier because she got home and she needed to go do something, which meant I couldn't have any exercise before doing this because I'm a man and I have my preconditioned view of how my day
Right,
was going to work.
right.
And when you're in those kind of moments, you've got to stop. You've got to gain control. You've got to not surrender to the triggers and then just act with love. And I think that's what you get into when you go up there. You sit down with someone who's vaguely familiar to you and you just go, right, where did I apply love? Where did I not? But my best idea of what God is came to me from Fergus O'Connor Greenwood. I don't know if you've had him on the show. He wrote 180 Degrees,
No,
Unknown the Lives.
I haven't, but I do have his book right in
Yes.
front of me.
It's a
And
cracker.
it is a cracker. It is a cracker indeed. But go on, carry on.
So I know this book very well. I've just recorded the audio book, which is coming out. 24 hours of listening to me narrate Fergus's book, which is quite something. Was quite something to do, especially all the satanic stuff. You wouldn't believe the amount of helicopters that went over, the amount of sirens, the amount of building work, the amount of tongue tying when I was talking about SRA, things of this nature. So anyone who doesn't think we're in a spiritual war, where frankly you're wrong. Well, I was having lunch with Fergus before Christmas, and we were talking about God, as you do with your mates when you're having a pie. And he talked about what a friend of his had said, who was a very powerful psychic, who had known God and had sat with him, sat in the field. And Fergus's friend said it was 100 times more love than you feel when you're holding your children. And I looked at Fergus and my mouth came open and I looked at him wide-eyed and said, do you realize what you just said? It's like, what do you mean? Because Fergus doesn't have children. And I said, it doesn't feel possible to know love that is 100 times
Right.
what you feel when you look at your children. That's totally incomprehensible to me. And he said, well, that's what the man said. And I know, and he said, I know it to be true, because know is a very important word. We're all going to have to learn the true meaning of gnosis, know that something is correct in our hearts. And I was like, you could have knocked me off the table, because the idea that there is a force out there that is 100 times the love I feel for my son and daughter. Well, isn't that a thing? Isn't that worth knowing? Isn't that worth exploring? It's just incredible.
It is incredible. I love that. But we've been raised in a environment, in a society that wants to detach us from our source, whatever you see your source as. I don't follow regular religion as such. I've always considered myself spiritual. I was raised by a mum who was a medium, actually. Thought everybody was raised that way. It took me moving to London at 18 to realize that not everybody thought the same way as I did. Not everybody was raised around a seance table. It was a bit of a shock for me, really. So I'm more open to those ideas, but I'm not to the point where my brains are falling out. My mind is not that open, but I'm absolutely aware that there is stuff around us, no doubt about it. There's some stuff that you're saying this morning that's making me shiver, and it's making me shiver because it's connecting with me. And that is the thing. But we've been so detached from our source, and that's because we're easier to manipulate as a people, obviously, when we're detached from who we are. And I think part of that is obviously the educational process. What do you feel about the educational process that we subject children to largely, the mainstream process?
Well, first of all, I'll say when you feel that shiver, you need to pay attention, because it would seem to me that is your confirmatory feeling.
Yeah.
So start to get to know that, start to love that, start to pay attention. Everyone has one of those. Mine is energy starting in my stomach and going up when I hear something or are included in a concept or conversation that I know to be correct. So anybody listening, start tuning into what your body is telling you when you're in the when you're witnessing conversation, concept, truth, whatever. Your body will not lie. So that's the first thing I'll say there.
Absolutely spot on. No, that's absolutely true. We have visceral reactions for a reason. We absolutely do. And
100%.
so, and people ignore what their solar plexus is saying to them. And then they end up in terrible situations because we seem to have an inner knowing that seems to have a lot of the answers before we even ask the question.
Yes, absolutely. And if you've got a problem, meditate. Or just sit in stillness and the answer will come to you. I've given up thinking. So I've got a couple of businesses. I'm an entrepreneur. When I get a problem, I've given up thinking about it. I simply go for a walk, meditate, let my mind still. The solution generally comes, definitely. And we all have to start keying into that because we're incredibly powerful. And I'm not going to go back down the world fractal of God. Let's talk about practicality. We're incredibly powerful and we can use that on a day-to-day basis. You know, how powerful would we be? How successful would we be if we stopped thinking and started feeling? It would just be much easier. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I'm not picking on you, but words are important. Education is not what goes on in this country.
Fair point.
Education, the root word is Latin, to lead out, to inspire. Real education is finding things that kids love and then letting them do those things. You know, that's what education about. We're talking about schooling, of course, aren't we? So schooling is an act of separating child from family at 9 o'clock every morning. What could be more unnatural? It's ridiculous. Our daughter goes to nursery 3 days a week. We're taking her down to 2 because she's going to school in the summer. We want some more time with her. And it feels ridiculous. We love the guys at our nursery. They're loving, beautiful people. But my point still stands. Generally, schooling is to take people away from their family. Who better to teach a child than their mother and father? So first of all, that doesn't make any sense. The second of all, schooling as it exists in modernity was invented in the 1920s. And it was invented by, oh my God in heaven, someone called Rockefeller. So all of these...
Stop the factories.
Yes, absolutely. We are talking about the creation of willing consumers. We are talking about, I forget who wrote this particular book. Was it Steiner? Was it somebody else? I'm not particularly sure. But the bell is there to teach us that nothing matters. Because whatever we're doing when the bell goes, we're instructed to stop thinking about it, put it down and move on to something else. Could be working on a cure. I won't say a cure for the disease.
Yeah.
On YouTube.
Got you.
You could be working on a piece of literary mastery, like hard times, whatever.
To the next thing. Yeah. But
So
you know,
who gives a crap anymore?
but that in itself is really curious because with all of your awareness, you're still sending your child to school. Is that through necessity?
It's through necessity. It's through, there is a school we want to send her to, Three Thinkers, but there are some fundamental problems with it, vis-a-vis where it is things of this nature. So what we've done is found a school that we are okay with, where the teachers are people we know, who are actually, a lot of the teachers there are Christians, which is a good start. And homeschooling is something my wife is not particularly interested in, which I respect. I may not disagree with it, but I respect it because we're 50-50 decision makers in it. So I'm aware that it's something I'm going to have to kind of manage and deprogram to an extent.
Right. So it's not straightforward for you. I got you.
No, it's not straightforward at all. And I'm going to be... I was speaking to a friend last night about this, and he said post-COVID, there's lots of behavioural problems in school that people just aren't addressing. And there is a situation in a lot of schools where troublemakers are running the show. And troublemakers aren't troublemakers because they're bad. They're like that because they haven't got enough love going on with them. And there are problems going on. Love is always the answer. Love is always the answer. But yeah, it's something I will bear. It's not something I won't be particularly happy with. And if anything goes on that I don't like, rainbow agendas, humans are whatever on the earth, we'll be having a conversation with the teacher.
Got you. It's not straightforward, and I don't pretend it is. My daughter went to school, but I was very fortunate. I was able to say to her throughout, you can come at any time. She chose to at the end of primary school for 3 years, but then she also chose to go back in because she missed the socialization aspect of the classroom. And I think I used to deprogram her, like, when she'd come back from school, I'd be like, what went on today? What was happening? And we'd go through that process so I could find out as much as I humanly could about what she'd been taught. I got very involved. I went in every Tuesday morning, I think when she was in like year 3 or whatever, whenever it was, and read with every child in her class 1-to-1, because they weren't able to do that, obviously.
Well,
Even
good
in
does go on. So,
Yeah.
so we know the school we're sending our girl to through our next door neighbour, who's a teacher, and his wife is a teacher, and she teaches in a Christian school where they have specifically asked for science and history to be taught in a certain way. And what we're talking about here is evolution as a theory. I thought, interesting. Isn't that really interesting that they're saying that sort of thing out loud? So hope exists. I mean, hope is being taken away. I mean, Keir Stormtrooper, whatever his name is, they voted down last week or this week. Voted down this week the inquiry into the grooming scandal.
Yeah.
And that was part of a bill to destroy homeschooling because of the experience and very sad story of one girl.
Exactly.
So homeschooling
Poor
is no
little Sarah
longer,
Sharif, they were willing to use her
I know,
murder. They're shameful.
unbelievable. But she is but one girl, and that's probably a very unpopular thing. It was a tragedy. It was disgusting. But to then politicize that and use that to take away the automatic right to homeschooling, we all know what's going on here. The Fabian crest is a wolf in sheep's clothing. They move
Right.
very slow.
Right.
That's why it's called Fabian. General Fabian was a Roman general who was very, very famous for his incremental, slow approach to military campaigns. And we've got to be mindful. Again, this is about consciousness. This is about helicopter view. And as Positive Pam calls your eagle's perch, this is about viewing history in 500-year blocks. Because the people we're dealing with, the group we're dealing with, they are sociopaths, psychopaths, whatever you want to call them, but they're very smart. They're very clever. They're very good at organizing. They're very good at planning. They're very good at strategy, and they view history in 500-year blocks. So they might be willing to allow someone like Trump in the White House and lose 5 to 10 years, maybe 20. We'll see how it goes. But they don't care because they practice generational thinking. And that's why we have to be conscious of all of this.
Yeah, we damn well do. You're absolutely right. This, everybody, is Ben Hawkes. He is the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Great Awakening, alongside...
I'm the co-author.
I was just going to say, alongside his partner, Michael Dowling-Fleet. He's
My
quick
brother.
off the mark. Is he actually your brother?
No, but
Oh,
that doesn't really matter.
No, exactly. I'm your sister.
I love
I've
my
got you.
brother.
I've
My
got
real
you.
brother, I absolutely love him. But as my wife says to me constantly, you are nothing like him. You're nothing like your parents. And you start to realize, I mean, we talk about soul contracts in the book. And the proposition is that we get to choose everybody, not everybody, but the vast majority of the cast of characters we interact with. And I love my parents. I see them for who they are. I see their faults.
Right.
And I see that the way they brought me up has provided resistance to get me to where I want to go, or to where I was meant to be. Peter,
Yes.
you're welcome. Thank you. Oh, Stephen, what's going on? Everyone's thanking me. For
Yes,
what?
of course they are thanking you.
you.
Oh, because it's nice when we share things like this, really. It's really important. And I take your point that just because they are of blood, it doesn't necessarily mean they're like you. But this is Ben, if you've missed his name, Ben Hawkes. And as I say, he is the co-author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Great Awakening. But they also have a signed copy for us to give away today.
Yes.
So please, by 6 p.m. tomorrow night, I will pick from a random selection. Send to Sonia Poulton at sky.com. I'm sure our lovely mods will put a link in the description, and just put book comp, and the first one pulled out randomly will be the winner of this brilliant book. And yes, Martin, I promise that I will put a link in the description if I haven't already. I think I already might have done, actually. I think there's a link already. So please go buy that book. Let's support each other. We need to support each other. Thank you, Ben, says Stella. In fact, there's loads of thank you, Bens, all the way down. Randy, Short Order Cook, Abster, etc., etc.
You're most welcome.
And
Thank
Crazy
you for
Bunny.
listening.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Take good care of yourself. Everybody.
No worries. Have a
Ben
wonderful
Hawkes.
day. Take care.
Lovely to have him with us. Thank you, Ben. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wonderful to have him with us. Yes, indeedy. Right. Let me see if I can bring back that overlay. I want to bring back that overlay. Yes, I do, because I think it looks good, and it's just going to be me now. So hopefully I can do it without it creating a problem. Let's just try this, shall we? Add overlay. Literally doing this as you are online, because that's the kind of show this is, right? Let's see what that does for me. Is that going to give it to me? Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. We're on episode 65. Can you actually believe that? Let's have a look at that. There we go. That should be all right. Can you all hear me fine, everybody? I hope so. I hope I haven't interfered with anything by adding that. So, right, let me talk about some news that has caught my eye this week, because I think that is also important. Let's talk about the California fires. Let's start with that. Let me see if I can just bring that across here. There we go. Those are some images from California. It's absolutely devastating to watch. I'm not underestimating what has gone on at all. Please be absolutely clear about that, first and foremost. Okay. Craig immediately says direct energy weapons. I must agree also with Jenny from the block, another Maui. It looks like another Maui. The only difference, Jenny, of course, is Maui. It was full of people who were not even a quarter as wealthy as the people involved in the Californian fires. We know that in excess of 160,000 people have been forced to evacuate. At least 2,000 homes, businesses, other buildings have been destroyed by the fire so far. At least 5 people have died in the wildfires, according to Los Angeles County officials. That is growing, though. So by the time we finish the show, there may be more. It's a series of wildfires. It's been spreading throughout LA. It began Tuesday. It rapidly spread to tens of thousands of surrounding acres. It is extremely interesting in many respects. I was doing a deep dive into it last night. And for example, I saw one eyewitness say that one home was saved in a street, and that was because they had a pool full of water. And why? Because there's not water in the fire hydrants. And if there is water, it's not sufficient. What on earth has been going on? A land grab, says Christine Chambers. Hollywood is smelling the smoke, which included wildfires. LA 2028 Smart City Plan. Now, that is an interesting comment. Who just said that? Reba. Thank you, Reba. And so what we were told, and yes, I'm absolutely aware that Joe Rogan appeared to have prophesied this last July when he was saying that he talked to somebody and they had said, all you need is the right high summer temperatures, the right wind, a failure of the kind of autumn rains in November, and that was it. Bang. Kind of like a perfect storm. And but there's so much more, isn't there, really, to it? This is not taking anything away from Joe Rogan. He was absolutely right in prophesizing it, because really arid land, really dry, obviously, lots of problems there. One resident, I saw lots of eyewitnesses, and one resident made this really curious comment. He said that everything was burned from Malibu to Nobu. Now, Nobu is a celebrity restaurant, and he said in Malibu style, we've managed to save Nobu, which is an odd thing, right? They've managed to save the celebrity restaurant. Really odd. Somebody's been arrested. Henry Winkler, formerly the Fonz, said there is an arsonist here in LA. May you be beaten, you unrecognizable! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. The pain you have caused. The individual stories indeed appear absolutely tragic. I take nothing away from that. People losing their homes. But when you look closer, you realize this is an area of our world that I can see why some people online say very boldly, this is karma. James Woods. Many people, including me, feel no sorrow or sympathy for him. James Woods is an actor, actually, involved in Oppenheimer, many others, but an absolute Zionist, even though he's a Catholic. I mean, you can be a Catholic and still a Zionist. People need to understand that. You don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist. Absolute Zionist, utterly foul and atrocious. I wonder if I've got some of his comments here that I'd like to get on screen, if I can find them. Let me just see if I can, because I was fairly appalled by some of the things that he has previously said. By the way, I do find him a problematic individual. Or maybe I haven't put it here, which is a pain. Sorry about that. I do apologize for that. But what he's previously said is essentially to kill everybody in Palestine. That's what he said. Right? He's an overprivileged, vicious Zionist gobshite who has poisoned and toxified our world. And now he's on CNN weeping and wailing because he's lost his home. So you were happy for innocent people to lose their homes, to be subject to a genocide, to be driven from their homes. And now you know what it feels like. I believe karma is very, very real. And another person who's been weeping and wailing on television, another toxic piece of filth, Jamie Lee Curtis, who literally makes me shudder these days when I fully comprehend what she's promoting as a mother of an adopted son. She has become a leading light in the trans movement. She essentially has a porn-addled son who says he's a woman, and she, over the last few years, Jamie Curtis, has become increasingly verbally violent and threatening to anyone who refuses to accept her warped version of reality. And she was on the Tonight Show on Jimmy Fallon on Wednesday night. And she then took to Instagram afterwards to say that her and her family have pledged $1 million from our family foundation to start a fund of support for our great city and state and the great people who live and love there. She said she's in communication with Governor Newsom. Well, Governor Newsom is probably part of the problem. And honestly, the reality is that if we talk about spirituality around here, then there has to be some comeuppance for people when they are utterly disgusting and putting utterly disgusting things into this world. Now, I'm not saying that this literally could be an act of nature, because nature can be absolutely vicious when it wants to be, and we are no match for nature. But equally, why isn't anybody talking about Jew? Why isn't anybody talking about HARP? Why isn't anybody talking about geoengineering? Why not? Why not? And so a lot of the buildings are destroyed. This is an area with many Jewish temples, and they've been destroyed. The Getty Villa, a museum near the Pacific coast featuring Greek and Roman art. Now, the surrounding area of the Getty Villa has been burnt, but not the Getty itself. And what's really interesting, of course, about the Getty is recently Ali Carter, who has come out and is claiming to be one of Diddy's victims and a trafficking victim, said before all of this happened, that she had been trafficked underneath the Getty Museum in tunnels that were linking various homes in that area, Pacific Palisades, in that area. She talked about that. And she also talked very recently about how there was going to be these monumental fires that would burn everything down. I don't think we can ignore that. I think we'd be stupid to ignore these things, because it would appear there is an arsonist. What is the point of it? What's going on? Any thoughts, people, in the comments? Any thoughts? I know some people think I'm being a bit hard, but I don't care. I don't actually care. And the demonic center of the world, Getty Museum, says Marcuson. Bingo. So something has taken place there. And you know what? In some respects, I have to be honest, it reminded me of Building 7 at 9/11, which apparently had nothing to do with the two main structures, but they took it down because of what was in Building 7. What was hidden in Building 7. The sheer volume of debt that just disappeared on that day that the government owned and was owed to the taxpayers, just disappeared on that day. There's so much that was in Building 7, and that's what this has reminded me of. But it's really horrible to watch. As I say, I take absolutely no joy in seeing people's homes burned to the ground. This is what it looks like now. This is astonishing. This is razed to the ground. And you also have to remember that that is an area of our world that is not just full of people who pump toxic crap into our world, but these are people who are part of many agendas, many wicked agendas. The movie industry is a wicked agenda, and it's attached to the Pentagon. There's an actual department in the Pentagon that works with Hollywood. People might not know that, but there is. Craig, I don't necessarily think it's relevant, to be honest with you. I'm just saying that it is interesting that probably a lot of people who have been displaced are Jews, and there will be Zionists amongst them. But as we know, with people like James Wood, he's not a Jew, he's a Catholic. And so I think all of these things are worth considering. And this is the kind of show that considers all those things. We don't just go, oh, well, look, that was a fire that swept through LA and that's that. No, that's not the world we live in. And I would be letting you down if I just took it like that. I would be letting you down. And I'm not prepared to do that. I'm not prepared to sell out. All of the above, says TD. Are the fires under control yet? Finbar, they're still spreading. Paris Hilton also lost a home. Paris Hilton recently had a surrogate baby. Again, I am not saying that these people are responsible for the fire. I'm just saying that all of these things in the round I think about, I consider. And Wake Up is part of my world. And so I'm considering it here with you. The devastation looks just like Gaza. Yes, Dan, it does. And that I think we cannot ignore. That yes, it looks like Gaza, but they can't rebuild their lives in Gaza. No, they can't. That's right. Exactly, Shug. They had no water pressure in the hydrants to quell the flames. And you have to wonder why. You have to wonder why. And D Hall is talking about the problem of cancelled policies. Yeah, there was all these cancelled insurance policies shortly before, right? Fire breaks are deliberately neglected, said Peter. Getty port with facilities supplying America with Navy, says Ian. So this is part of the Great Reset they plan. Windle, I don't know. I don't know. Is Diddy's house there, Mike? I haven't seen that. I have not seen that. And is there not a metal they want that is in California? JT, these are good questions. I think these are important questions because we know enough now not to be stupid, to know that what these people are up to, right? To know what these people are up to. So as I say, I take no great pleasure in people's homes burning down. I'm not that kind of person, but I do sit back and I observe and I think, well, James Woods, now you know what it feels like. Now you know what it feels like. And I do think it's interesting that Ali Carter was speaking out about tunnels. She's one of the more plausible people, by the way, that has come out speaking out. There are some people that I think are absolute liars that they go on YouTube just to make money. But Ali Carter isn't one of them. I think that Ali Carter, there is truth to what Ali Carter is saying in the same way as I think there is truth to what Cat Williams is saying. Apparently Newsom has made it illegal there for people to collect rainwater. Is that true? Is that true? Trump said the other day that when he gets in, all hell will be unleashed on Gaza. I saw that. That's why I can't completely go along with what's being said, obviously, about Trump. But I mean, what more can we do now other than to wait and see? We just don't know, right? We just don't know. That is the reality. What more can we do other than to wait and see? Right. What do I want to move on to? Let me, because time is already, I'm actually almost preparing too much news for our shows. But the ignorance of the grooming gangs is absolutely doing my head in. Absolutely doing my head in. I mean, obviously people are calling for a public inquiry, but many people don't realize there actually already was one. Now, it was part of the child abuse inquiry. It lasted 7 years. They looked at grooming gangs. Now, I appreciate it wasn't enough. And you know why it wasn't enough? Because the very people, the Tories who were in power, failed to implement what was recommended, the recommendations, and that included reporting people when you suspect child abuse is taking place. The Tories did not implement those recommendations, and they're there now trying to make money off the backs of grooming victims. It's disgusting. I hate that. I don't like the amount of people playing party politics with child abuse. It's utterly abhorrent. And, you know, the thing is, I made my film Paedophiles in Parliament because of 40 years of allegations made against the British establishment and no resulting arrest, charges and convictions. And there is no political party and no demographic that is untouched by child abuse. None. It is in every area of our society. But my attitude is every nonce and every one of their enablers must be exposed. I don't care what they look like. I don't care how culturally or politically sensitive it is. We must expose them, but we must also expose all the people involved. And believe me, I've looked into this for an awful long time. There's a lot of people who enable these things to happen. You don't seriously believe that it's just the grooming gangs, right? It will also be the local authorities that kept it quiet, the police that were aware of it and did nothing. There's layers upon layers of people who are complicit in child abuse who are now out there screaming and crying, saying, oh, it's so terrible. What happened? And some of the people expressing great concern about grooming gangs is just, they make me want to puke. This includes Andrew Tate, who actually bullied a grooming gang survivor this week after she defamed him on X. She deleted her tweet, but he carried on threatening her and telling her he was trying to become her leader. He's a filthy, disgusting narc. Anyone who supports him is a wrong un. Yeah, I cannot stand that man. He's disgusting. And it's interesting that Sammy Woodhouse, who is a survivor of the grooming gangs, has come out against GB News. GB News, who consider themselves at the forefront of this, she said it's becoming a habit that a couple of presenters at GB News are lying about the child rape in Rotherham and my life. GB News may be new to all of what's happened in Rotherham, but they need to do better journalism and stop lying in regard to mine and others' lives. These people are largely doing it for clicks. That's what they're doing. And I'll give you one example of another hypocrite, and I can speak from personal experience, and that is presenter Martin Daubney. Presenter Martin Daubney, weeping and wailing like a good one. I am so sorry for my outburst. It's so awful. Let's stop this. This is the Martin Daubney who was the longest serving editor on Loaded magazine, one of the nastiest publications to denigrate women and treat us like meat and objectify us. And yes, crap like that has added to the general atmosphere where there is a tolerance of abuse towards women. That's a fact. I hated Page 3. Absolutely loathed it. The fact that Page 3, as one example, which was absolutely abhorrent, I could never support it. And that was a Murdoch publication, Page 3 in the Sun, no longer. But Page 3 was always of a nude female. And Sam Fox, as one example, she had her Page 3 debut on her 16th birthday. How disgusting is that? Well, Martin Daubney, Loaded was like that, was like Page 3. Right? Loaded existed for a time, absolutely, with the assistance of females who appeared within the pages in various states of debauchery and undress. And they also contributed to our society in the way it is now. Yes, they did. I don't consider a lot of the people who did Page 3 to be victims. They did it willingly. They did it willingly. And but Martin Daubney is now like reinvented himself as someone who seems to care about working class white women. You didn't when you were at Loaded, mate, but there's more to Daubney that I want to talk about right now, and I'll make it quick and I'll bring this image in. This was when I was on this morning with Martin Daubney. And if you can actually see up close, the picture in the middle is Martin Daubney actually laughing at me. And that discussion, which involved Philip Schofield, Holly Willoughby, Denise Robertson, their former agony aunt, Martin Daubney and me. And it was actually about the debate was whether you should put explicit pictures of your child online. And of course, you know which position I was coming from. And it was based on a picture that Perez Hilton had put online, a shower selfie of him and his toddler. And it's true, you couldn't actually see, you know, the child's genitals, thank God, but you could see, you got an impression of what was taking place. And I had an issue with it because I was way ahead of all of these people. And some of them clearly had a dog in the race now when I look back at it. There's an article still online on the Daily Mail saying, has bath time lost its innocence? Parents go head to head after backlash. Well, let me tell you, Martin Daubney and Philip Schofield called me hysterical. They said I was hysterical. I said the problem about putting images of your children in states of undress online is that pedophiles will pick it up. And they said I was hysterical and getting in the way of parents wanting to show pride for their children. Right? Jan, interesting. No reporting on the boys damaged by gangs. Jan, and also what about the Pakistani British girls who were also damaged by the gangs? Help me get a strong wrist. I get you. Yeah. And so I'm sick and tired of people like Martin Daubney using this, right? Using this for clicks, likes, subscribes, when in fact their history would suggest that they were not on the side of vulnerable females or indeed children. Now, I'm not making any big claims about Martin Daubney, obviously. I'm not defaming him in any way. I'm simply saying what was real and what was there. And you know what? People can change. They can change. But I'm a bit sick of all this pretend concern from people like Daubney when they themselves have potentially contributed to a climate in the UK where females and children are treated like objects. So that's what I have to say about that. And by the way, boo hiss, Channel 4, the fake grooming scandal. This is all going on. We stand a good chance of raising proper awareness about what's taken place. And Channel 4 come out with a several part series about Ellie Williams. Ellie Williams was the fake woman. She's in prison now, who claimed that she had been abused. I actually interviewed one of the men that she accused. It was at the height of lockdown in 2020. 19-year-old Ellie Williams claimed on social media that she'd been exploited by a grooming gang in the north of England. Turned out to be a lie, but that is what Channel 4 have gone with. And that was after BBC had gone with that. So they've got one person. And this is what they did with the VIP scandal. This is why I'm really concerned about some of the people who leap on these stories, because they don't care about getting to the truth. I want to get to the truth. I want to get to the truth. The VIP scandal, Carl Beach appeared, right? Carl Beach is now in prison like Ellie and Ellie Williams. And Carl Beach was someone who was said to have made up all these lies, and they focused on him, and that was it. The VIP scandal was done and dusted. Oh, Cara just said, what about Carl Beach? A patsy. Cara, look at that. We're speaking from the same mind, sweetheart. Was she the one who was in a dustbin? They will do anything to cover it up. We know it's been institutionalized. Absolute fact. But the fact is that not everybody is like us. Not everybody is as awake and aware as us around here. So that really worries me. It really, truly troubles me. And yeah, what happened this week, what Ben was just referring to, the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill, politicians are largely disgusting. I'm not at all surprised that Wednesday's vote in the British Parliament went the way it did. I'd be more surprised if they did say, yes, let us have a full grooming gang inquiry. The politicians who are in power right now are complicit. They are complicit. Of course, they don't want an inquiry into it. And they're out there. But as I say, we did have a child abuse inquiry. It cost us millions. And, you know, the thing is, people are so quick to call for inquiries without actually looking what it entails. And unless it's an independent one, it's not worth the paper it's written on. Professor Jay, by the way, who did understand the grooming gang scandal, who was running the child abuse inquiry, gave as thorough as she could an inquiry response. And I say as thorough as she could, because the big problem, of course, is with these inquiries, the terms of reference. Let me take that image off the screen. The big problem with these inquiries is the terms of reference. They start off so narrow, and so you can never get to the bottom of what is really being said. So disturbing all ways round, really. And I don't have time to do this story. I'm going to have to do it on Monday. No, you know what? I am going to do it. We might have to go a little bit over. NSPCC. Let's talk about the NSPCC. Is child protection a priority? I asked in 2019. I'd also talked about the NSPCC in my film, Paedophiles in Parliament. The NSPCC is Britain's foremost children's charity, National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Oh, how I laugh. Absolutely atrocious organization, has not looked after children for a very, very long time. And part of the blame for what is going on in the UK regarding the safeguarding of children must lay at the feet of the NSPCC. I wonder if I can bring in some images that will really ram home the people who have been involved with the NSPCC over the years. Let's bring them in. Let's bring in some of these images because I think it's important. But for starters, one of the things I put on social media yesterday, by the way, was an image of Margaret Thatcher. And where have I put this? An image of Margaret Thatcher and Jimmy Savile. And a couple of people were like, there's no way that Margaret Thatcher could have known about Jimmy Savile. This is part of the problem. People are still living in this ridiculous scenario where they want to believe that people like Margaret Thatcher and King Charles have no clue about what's going on around them. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous stuff. And let me just see if this doesn't want to give me those images. Well, which is a pity, but I'm going to try and work through them anyway if I can. But I did this report in 2019. And I did a report into the NSPCC because I had very grave and serious concerns about what was taking place at the NSPCC, because they had this man who had brought in trans identified male, Munro Bergdorf. And it turned out that the man who had brought in Munro Bergdorf was actually somebody who worked at NSPCC and was getting dressed up in his rubbers and going into the toilets at work and masturbating and putting it online. Yes, people. That's why I did a report in 2019 about NSPCC. That gives you a good understanding straight off the bat of who we're dealing with. Straight off the bat. Okay. So we are talking about extremely dodgy people. It was the NSPCC, by the way, who were given the job by Theresa May. And I talk about this in my film, Paedophiles in Parliament. It was the NSPCC who were given the job of going back through the files and seeing if there was a cover up in Parliament. Guess what? They concluded there wasn't. They concluded there wasn't a cover up in Parliament, and which is just abhorrent and disgusting. But I've got to get some pictures here. I've got to get some pictures. Although whether it wants to give them to me is a whole other story. No, it's This is really weird. I'm having such weird tech issues today. Really weird. Let me just carry on working through this anyway, with or without images. And so that happened. That's why I did that report. And then what we also, so some of the other people involved, right? You have Keith Vaz. Keith Vaz is somebody that I also cite in Paedophiles in Parliament, who tried to interfere in the police investigation into Edward Heath. Keith Vaz is also somebody who was on the front page of a newspaper because he was entertaining male prostitutes. Then there's Lord Peter Mandelson, who was also involved with the NSPCC. He, of course, now is going to be working with Donald Trump and his administration on behalf of the UK. Please don't vomit. Rolf Harris, who was convicted. Rolf Harris did a book for the NSPCC called "Kids Can Say No, for goodness sake." Kids can say no. Are you people having a laugh? Or what? Oh, wait, I think I might be able to bring some of these images because I think it's really important to try and share them, actually, because I think they're that bad. And some of the involvements of these people. Yeah, let's try it. So look at this one. Who's this? Who's this who's also involved? Once it will process for me. Prince Andrew, Sarah Ferguson and their children, they were part of the Full Stop campaign. And guess who was the face of the Full Stop campaign alongside Prince Andrew? Why? None other than Naomi Campbell, of which there is a picture of Naomi Campbell. And she's actually looking at Virginia Giuffre, right? And because Virginia Giuffre said, you know, you all saw me. And she included Naomi Campbell. But Naomi Campbell was the face of it. Max Clifford, I don't think, was the face or involved with it. He might have been. He might have been involved in PR. But there's more, obviously. Dame Esther Ranson, as she now is, she formed Childline, which kind of overlaps with the NSPCC. And many people believe these are gatekeeping operations. There was a drama documentary on ITV, and I swear it was based on NSPCC and Childline. I swear. And I have to wait until certain people pass over before I can go into it in depth. Why the hell do parents let their children near pedos? Paula, it's a question I ask on a regular basis. The one story I want to save until Monday, which is where I want to go in more detail about Esther Ranson, because I think that she is such a horrendous gatekeeper. More people involved with NSPCC. Lady Claire Hazel Ivor. She's on Epstein's flights. Right? She ended up having to resign. NSPCC. So we are talking about people highly questionable for a very long period of time. A gatekeeping operation. Sir Cliff Richard, celebrity supporter of the NSPCC Full Stop campaign. And that was launched by Prince Andrew, as I've already said. There's so many people. Fluella Benjamin, who was once an associate of Ghislaine Maxwell, she was also involved with it. Hugh Grant, Elizabeth Hurley. Elizabeth Hurley these days has semi-nude pictures taken by her son. Weird pictures involved. Weird people have been involved in a child charity. You have to wonder, right? Why would they want to? This, I think, is an iconic picture in its own right, and we should not ignore it. We should not. Oh, no, that's not what I want. There we go. This one. Jimmy Savile, Margaret Thatcher. Somebody dared to say to me on my ex this morning, there's no way, I'm paraphrasing, there's no way Margaret Thatcher knew about Jimmy Savile. Grow up. You have to grow up. Just because Margaret Thatcher might have done one or two things that you like, it does not mean that she wasn't a paedophile enabler. Please grow up. She was on children's programs as well. Yes, she was. Ranson is vile, which is why I want to do a deep dive into her. I think that's important. I really do think it's important. Then, of course, there's the Freuds. The Freuds and the Murdochs, they've been involved in the NSPCC. And Matthew Freud's father, who's accused of being a paedophile. Elizabeth Murdoch's father, well, Rupert Murdoch has been accused of all manner of things, but I wouldn't want him anywhere near child charity. And Windle is telling us that Musk is not a good guy. I'm not quite sure why you're saying that right now, but hey, no argument here from me. And just one more thing, because this is kind of mad, but I'm going to do a deep dive into Esther Ranson on Monday. But yes, the NSPCC, I think, a really problematic charity. I don't believe it's there to protect children. I absolutely don't. And I have deep concerns about it. I believe that is a gatekeeping operation. Yes, Shug. She had Savile had Thatcher had Savile at Chequers for many, many Christmas dinners. Don't anybody tell me that her secret services and her close protection officers didn't know about him. And if they didn't, then they should not have been in the job. Ridiculous. I want to share this with you. Actually, somebody mentioned Elon Musk, so I'm going to mention him now. Elon Musk's digital tool, Grok, it's created a character of me. I asked, who do I look like in this picture, guys? Right. I asked Grok because I want to do some research into it, right? Because obviously people are deeply concerned about Grok and about artificial intelligence, whether it really exists or not. And I asked Grok to do a Pixar style character creation of me. They think I'm Kate McCann. Look at this. They literally think I'm Madeleine McCann's mum. Now, is that because I have done more to look for Madeleine McCann than Kate McCann did? Because Kate McCann famously did not look for her own daughter. Whereas I've been to the scene of crime twice. I've done everything I humanly can to find out what happened to Madeleine McCann. But yes, Grok does indeed think that I am Kate McCann. How curious is that? Crazy Bunny said, I asked it to draw me and it was a black man. I saw that, Crazy Bunny. It's kind of mad. Fox is so strange. So strange. Not quite Pixar. I hear you, Kravos. AI is a marketing gimmick. Yes, Mr. Bojangles. But I just thought that was curious. Right, I've got to bring you to the end of the show, guys. Because, so much. But this is an email from Alan. Dear Sonia, I love your final thought and wondered what you think about the expression, sometimes you have to break before you can bloom. Lots of love. Keep waking them up, Alan. I've never heard that expression before. I've literally never heard that expression before. Have you? Sometimes you have to break before you can bloom. I've heard similar expressions to it, but never that actual one. But as soon as I read it from Alan, I was like, well, that resonates with me. I'm from the school of hard knocks. All my best lessons have been learnt the hard way. I'm a product of many harsh lessons. I'm a product of abandonment by my father. I've been beaten. I've been abused. I've been backstabbed and betrayed. And not one thing would I change because it's made me who I am. I see joy in broken things. My garden is full of pots that have smashed and I've glued back together again, not because I am a cheapskate, but because these pots count and their scars are part of them. And it's similar to the Chinese art of repairing things, kintsugi, and where they put kind of like a gold, they mix lacquer dust with powdered gold, silver, or platinum, because the idea is that breakages and repairs are part of the history of an object rather than something to disguise. And I like that. And I think that applies to what Alan is asking here. And because there's, the thing is, what is it that they say, that the crack is where the light comes in? And, about kind of like people who, I don't consider myself broken, maybe a little bit bent out of shape from my life's experiences, but I'm not broken. I'm far from broken. But I do completely get that a whole idea of break before you bloom. And I think that's the whole darkest before the dawn sort of idea. And the thing is, it can have multiple meanings. Yes, Craig, glued back and stronger than ever. Yes, Rumi, Blue Nomad, you're absolutely right. The cracks let the light shine through, says Crafty Kim. We're wide awake. Boom, back to the 90s. Yes. Lara is talking about King Cora. That is a conversation for another day, Lara, but I get you, sweetheart. I get you. So the break before you bloom. Sometimes we get profound insights, right, from things that absolutely break our heart, whether that's grief, whether that's people leaving us, rejection. And it can change us in all manner of ways. But the one thing that I absolutely know without a shadow of a doubt, and that is, in order to be able to bloom and blossom from that experience, right, you have to first honor the wound that has been created in you. You have to acknowledge the heartbreak. And you have to tend to it. Do not ignore it. I think some of the problems in our world are psychopaths who may have gone through private education, may have been abused, not been dealt with, told to stiffen up, toughen up, stiff upper lip, all that kind of stuff, never acknowledge what they've been through. I think that is part of the problem. Cat of Jermaine frequently experiences psychic phenomena. Seeds break before they germinate. Yes. When do we paint our roofs blue? M wants to know. Is this to do with the Is this to do with the bolts we were seeing in LA? Very real. Got you. So you have to be able to bloom from your wounds, but you have to first of all acknowledge what your wounds are. You have to. There's a learning and growing involved. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? He talks about how we need to be emotionally ready before we can begin to learn about who we are and, you know, about manifesting ourselves. Okay. And I also get that. So work on improving your emotional self, and you'll know where your weaknesses are, because those are the things that are being triggered. Okay. So it could be anything. Yes. Get your Kath. It could be anything. Randy was a baby ignored, watching all the stuff my parents had to go through and do. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Kiwi Mama, I appreciate that. Kravos, I do my very best around here, but also appreciate yourself. There's not enough self-appreciation in this world, because the thing is, I'm going to paraphrase it really badly, but you know that expression about all the people who don't know are the ones shouting the loudest, where the people who do know are the silent ones, right? That's probably you listening to this. You're probably somebody who is an absolute, you know, you're full of wisdom and knowledge and brilliance, right? But you just probably might not have had an opportunity to share that. Okay, so take a moment to appreciate who you are. You can write down your strengths and positive qualities. Everybody's always so busy focusing on your weaknesses, right? The things you get wrong. But what about the things that are brilliant about you, right? That stand out, that you don't even blow your own trumpet. Blow your own trumpet. And also, when people treat you badly, remember it says more about their shortcomings than it does about yours. And I'm reminded about all of these things and the healing from grief and everything, because this weekend there's going to be a gathering of people that I met in Royston early last year when I did a talk. And there was a lovely lady there called Jenny, and Jenny very sadly has passed. And people are gathering together at the weekend to pay tribute to her. She was one of us. Jenny was one of us. Okay. And she's gone over there onto the other side, and rest in peace, Jenny. Lots of love to you and everybody there tomorrow. And that's right, Ian. You can't love others if you don't love yourself. That's the reality. You have to love yourself. You have to. Oh, Jenny, rest in peace, Crazy Bunny. Indeed. And lots of love to everybody who loved Jenny and were close to her as well. Very painful. Yeah, MB, do you know what? And the thing is, MB, that is the ultimate. I love that. MB's actually saying, rest in peace, Jenny, keep fighting. Yeah, because the chances are you can be an even more effective fighter on the other side, right? So I am going to end on a quote, as I always do. First of all, just to say thank you all for being here today. And as ever, please feel free to disagree with me. It's not a crime around here, okay? I'm not Keir Starmer. There's no two tiers around here. If you don't like what I say, tell me. If you like what I say, tell me. If you want me to interview somebody, tell me. Please keep contacting me. A lot of our guests are a consequence of your requests. And I love you too, Abster. 11:11 nearly. Right. Okay, 11:11. So the quote I'm going to end on, and thank you, everybody. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everybody, for every single one of your contributions, whatever your contributions are. Thank you, Hope. I appreciate that very much. Thank you to our two wonderful mods, Crazy Bunny and Soul Sound. We love you. We absolutely love you. I'm waiting for 11:11 to read this quote, because I'm just that kind of person, right? Thanks all, says Chris. Absolutely. We're now on 11:11 and I'm going to read it. It says, there will be haters. There will be doubters. There will be non-believers. And then there will be you, proving them all wrong. Have a fantastic weekend. I will see you Monday. I love you more than you can humanly imagine. Take excellent care of yourself. See you Monday, everybody.